on this computer.
Thank you. So welcome to the session on fundraising and fundraising systems. This is C2's development team, and we will all introduce ourselves. My name's Kiera Sims. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the development director for the Center for Third World Organizing. And I'll pass it to Michelle.
Hey there, my name is Michelle Bermeo Betancourt, and I am the development manager here at C2. My pronouns are she, her, and I will pass it to Ren.
Hello, my name is Ren Trueblood. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the data and development organizer at C2.
Yes, so today we'll be in a 20 to 30-minute conversation about our fundraising practices, our systems, how we got into fundraising, and just, yeah, being a general conversation, and hopefully it's helpful to all of you. But my first question for both Ren and Michelle, and then I can answer, is what's your favorite part of fundraising?
I was thinking about this before our call. And I I think my favorite part is planning like fundraising events with a team of people. I love the process of like building something together, especially something that's going to be fun for the community and engaging and also bring folks in. And also just like getting to be together in the same space, which I know has been like a struggle since COVID. But yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts. What about y'all?
Yeah, Ren, I'm going to say that my favorite part is talking to the donors. I know that that's usually the most intimidating part, but for me, I love it. And I love getting to know more about them, their hopes, dreams, how they want to plug in into social justice work. 'Cause I think a lot of the time folks really want to help and make things better for everybody, but they don't know where to start. And I love being able to offer them that opportunity. What about you, Kiera?
Yeah, I'm thinking I really love when people say yes. And
Mm.
finally get those like donations or grants in. And I actually really love writing about the work. That's how I got into fundraising when I was an organizer and a program director at different organizations. I just love just sitting down and just thinking it through and just writing what we do and the impact of what we do and just laying out strategy. Which is amazing that we're all a team because we all have so many different things, which is essential to creating a team, which will, maybe we'll go into this question right now. It's like, do y'all want to say how do we work together as a team? We just talked about what we love about fundraising, but maybe we can start with different parts of our roles and how those fit together, and then just be in conversation about how we work together as a team.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. I was gonna say, I think my favorite part is that we are all down to support each other no matter what each other is working on. So I think like we all love different parts of fundraising, and so I think that's where we shine a lot of the time. Like we'll take on those things a lot of the time. But yeah, I just think that we're all just like, oh, well, if you need help with this grant writing or planning this event or planning this campaign or, making sure that we have the right information for donor education and whatnot. I think we just work really well together. We're very passionate. And I think like we're also, because we love what we do and the work that we're doing, I think that also shines through as far as our team dynamic. And of course, it took some time for us to get in sync, but I think once we did, it was like everything has just been flowing really, really well.
Yeah, I really like this question about how do we work together as a team, because it really impacts like the work we do and how we get it done. I think especially what you brought up, Kiera, about our specific roles within the work. So like for myself, as someone who's like the data person, a research person, I feel like also I'm definitely a person who builds out plans with input and ideas from the whole team. I feel like in the work, oftentimes, there are a lot of ideas that are really great. I think both of y'all are very creative people, and I love being able to bounce ideas off of each other, and then also synthesizing those ideas into creating like our fundraising plans, and figuring out from like the different perspectives we have on fundraising, what our best processes are for raising funds, for connecting with donors, for organizing our data. So that's one way I really think that I see myself fitting into the team, but also would ask like, Kiera, how do you see yourself in the team and how we work together?
Yeah, I see myself as like holding the bigger picture with y'all. And so to get and with y'all and then consulting with our executive director and our larger leadership team around like what are the larger goals of the organization and how do we just tap into abundance to make it happen. And I think if anything, the essence of our team is abundance. Like, okay, what do we need to do to get what we need and how can we do it together? And C2 as a liberatory practice leans into abundance over and over and over again. So as a development director, I work closely with Michelle on grant writing. Michelle manages the grant writing process, but I also am responsible for recruiting major donors and large donors with our executive director. And I hold the whole team and supervise the whole team, but have started out, in the earlier years of this development team with just myself. And so I was able to help research, our every action CRM system that Ren is a pro in now. And then, also like I build new foundation relationships and then bring Michelle into those and, just making sure I'm sharing the learnings and the practices, but also holding the essence and the large goals and strategies of the organization. Can y'all tell us more about your roles and like what that looks like every day?
Yeah, I can go first. So like you mentioned, Kira, I do hold a lot of the grant management work. So that grant research for new funders, writing a lot of the grant proposals for new opportunities that come up, and also, the reporting needed, and also working with you on bringing more sustainers into the work and bringing more small and mid-level donors and really building relationships with those folks as well, because they are just as equally important as major and large donors. So making sure that they know that they are valued, even though their donations are smaller, they're still really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And then I would say like my role in that is definitely collaborating with y'all and supporting on things. I see y'all as holding the majority of the grant writing work, and I offer some editing support when needed. This year, I have been doing a bit of fundraising leading for our individual donors. And I really like that we rotate who leads fundraisers to share the workload. And also I feel like, yeah, that's been a big part of my role this year. In addition to, I think really like building on the foundation that you built, Kiera, when it was just you, because you were, yeah, literally the data person in addition to being the grant writer and the fundraiser. And so I feel like my role has been trying to get all of our data together and organized, which has been going well. And I think we're going to talk about that more later. And then also just taking like these bigger picture things about like what we need to have done, like how we need to track our grants, how we need to hold research, how we need to hold information about relationships between individuals, and then turning them into systems that will like last through the organization. So I think I've been in a space of seeing like how we want to set things up and then trying to build out those systems in a way that works best for our team and then our larger organization.
Yes, it's, making me think we're always in conversation about like setting up processes and systems that will last beyond you. And so the person that comes after you, making sure that they can just come right in and have all the information they need. So that's our lighthouse is like, how do we get all the systems in place where if we didn't come back tomorrow, which is not the case, that everything would be here and all the systems would. So let's go into that conversation around, I guess we can start with like, what are the essentials of a fundraising plan to start like larger? And then we'll go more into, with that plan, what systems are created. And so I'll start by saying that a fundraising plan needs large goals, big dreams. We always start with like big dreams. And sometimes they don't feel practical, but we just keep them that way. So fundraising plan needs dreams that are rooted in abundance, that make you just like go after it and get it. And then below that, we categorize our dreams and our goals based on our workload. So y'all want to say more about that?
Yeah, I think the next big thing that comes up for me in a fundraising plan is a diversity of like funding. So in a fundraising plan, like having those big dreams and then also breaking them into so maybe you have a fundraiser for small donors, and then you have some grant opportunities you're applying for. And then maybe you also do consultant work for a couple organizations, and that's another funding stream. So just laying out the multiple funding streams you have.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna have that diversity. One of the biggest things for me is making room for that relationship building, because a lot of development and fundraising work, it hinges a lot on relationships. So, having strong relationships with funders, so that they understand our work and understand why they should keep funding our work, right? And donors, like why they should keep giving, like uh, why their support is really important and what it is going towards. So definitely that relationship building piece, I think, is also a key part of a fundraising plan.
Yeah, and what you're saying, Michelle, is, reminding me about, we have long-term goals and short-term goals. So how are our short-term goals getting us to our long-term? And we define short-term by every, like, a yearly cycle. And then our long-term goals are 3 to 5 years, and that's how we operate right now, as a team, even though our organization has a longer strategy and more years in that strategy. Yeah, I think also in a fundraising plan, getting clear about what your ask is. And so, for instance, are we, in 2020, what is next year? 23? I was going to say 2024.
Yes.
In 2023, like, are we specifically focusing on ramping up our programming funding? Are we focusing on general operating? Are we focusing on, 3 more major donors, and who is responsible for those major donors? And identifying, as we talked about in one of our workshops this week, identifying that ladder of engagement. So it's also about like, who do we already have? Who do we need to bring in? How do we bring them in? Which is why most times you see a development team that works closely with the communications team, because
Absolutely.
development team sets goals around fundraising, but the communications team is essential in making those goals public, but drawing people in, so that we can then make the ask once they're drawn in. So there's a communications aspect to a fundraising plan. Our fundraising plans include gifts and swag to participants and donors and people that are closest to us. We like to show appreciation to everyone. Do y'all have anything else we would add to your fundraising plan?
I don't think I have anything to add. Oh, sorry, Ren, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're okay. I think the last thing I just wanted to like reiterate is like creativity in like your fundraising plan, and knowing what fundraising strategies work best for your organization and what's going to resonate most with the audiences that you're trying to connect with. So that might involve a little bit of research. That might also just involve having a context of the landscape that you're fundraising in. So I'm thinking like when I was working at a local organization, so having an understanding of, okay, I want to reach out to these kind of people, and I know that this kind of fundraising strategy is going to resonate with them. But also like, yeah, infusing creativity in the big dreams. If you're like, I want to run a fundraiser that nobody's ever done before, and this is my big idea, and I don't know if it'll work. Like, like letting yourself dream and letting yourself try something new in those ways. And And then also just making sure you have at least one person assigned to making this fundraising plan happen. I would say a team is much better to have. It's great if you can have a team of folks, but at least one person who's like, okay, I'm going to make sure that these strategies are happening and that we are working towards this overall goal of how much ever money you're trying to raise.
Yeah, knowing your audience is very, very important. Because you know, fundraising for a major or a large donor is different if you're trying to get small sustainers. As Michelle spoke about before, that's oftentimes a different crowd, a different approach. So knowing your audience is very key. And I guess we can go into like, how do we track our audience? How do we know who we're talking to? And so at Center for Third World Organizing, we use a CRM system called Every Action, but you can use whatever CRM system you would like. I'm going to say a little bit about why we chose the one we chose, and then Ren can speak about some of the systems you've created to help us keep track of this. And then Michelle, maybe you can talk about how you pull the reports that Ren has created from the systems Ren have created to help inform our plans. And so for us, when we were looking for a CRM, a client relations manager, we looked at one, we set a budget and we you know, because there's a vast range of costs. So we set a budget. We looked at user friendly models. We looked for models where multiple people on our team could tap in remotely. We looked for models where we could have multiple administrators and that we could keep notes on one person over time.
Mm-hmm.
You would also want to think about, if you want to, what relationships are you tracking? Is it individuals only? Is it individuals and foundations? Is it individuals and foundations and organizations? So knowing what's your goal amount of people you want in the system is important as well. And then also how long you plan to stick with just data management in general, and looking at like for a company or a management system that has been around and is proven to work over time is important. Do y'all want to add anything about those qualifications?
I think the next thing I was thinking of is just like the functions that work best for us. Like, I think the great thing about Every Action is that it's a system that can hold donations. So it's like an actual donation platform where people can give through. It's a platform that holds a lot of contact records in so many different fields. Like, you can track their birthday, you can track what events of yours they've attended, you can track their donations, you can track if they've unsubscribed, like all in one place. Also, I really love how we use it to talk to our audiences. Like, Every Action also kind of functions as like a newsletter system. And I'm thinking about, again, when I was working at a local organization, we had systems, but they were all separate. So we had like a MailChimp for the newsletter. We had donor box to get donations, and we used Google Doc spreadsheets to track information about our participants and our donors. And so I would say also, if you are watching this video and that's where your organization's at, like, that's okay. I don't think it makes sense for you to like try to get a CRM that you're not going to use. But if you are looking to like level up your systems, looking for something that combines all of those needs into one is really helpful. Are there other things y'all would add?
No,
Yeah,
but
I was gonna add that Every Action also has this feature about automation that I love, because we can set certain things to happen automatically in our system to reach out to donors. So part of that relationship building piece, right? It's like, if it's a new donor, they get an email like immediate or 2 weeks out that says, hey, welcome to the team, thank you so much for donating, would love to like set up a meeting to get to know more about you and why you decided to donate. And like you mentioned, Kara, earlier, that reporting piece is really important, because I can pull a bunch of data and lists from there that help inform fundraising plans and our fundraising strategy. And I also love that I can like make notes for individual donors that we are in relationship building, relationship with that we've been in conversation with. So over the summer, I got to talk to some of our mid-level donors and some of our sustainers, and I was able to capture the notes of our conversations, which was really helpful because it helps us see what draws people to C2 and what keeps them here as donors.
Yes, and it's also making me, there's a feature where you can track an individual's relationship to another individual or an organization. So you're tracking that relationship history too. But I also was gonna say, like, this sounds like an every action ad, which it is not, but if they want to sponsor us, please do. If anyone's watching this, give us our discount, please. So
Right. And a
so
good CRM will encompass all those things, right?
yeah,
So I've
yes.
had experience with, for example, Powerbase. And so we were able to do similar things. So just a matter of, preference, budget. And like Ren said, if you have those things separate right now and that works for you, that's okay. You don't have to use that system. Just something that works for you to keep organized.
Mm-hmm. And how has having a just, CRM system in general over the lifespan of your fundraising career helped in tracking donor relationships? Like, what would you say, what made it, how did it make it more easy or not? How did it change your relationship to tracking donors?
Yeah, I can share some. So I will say, when I first started off fundraising, literally my first day on the job, my part-time job when I shifted from volunteer to actual part-time staff was taking the spreadsheets we had of donors and putting them into a very low budget CRM called Donor Snap. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Donor Snap, but it is not the easiest system. And so like going from having to like use these DIY spreadsheets to that system and now being in this system that is like really all encompassing and does everything. It's kind of like a one-stop shop, but again, this is not an every action ad. I found that it's really important to dedicate yourself to the system you're using. Like if you're in a position of having to transition how you track systems or start something new, like please, please, please do what makes sense for your organization. Because one of my worst fears is creating a huge system that took a lot of work and then nobody uses it. And I will say that when you move into a CRM, like every action, it took a little while to adjust. Like you do have to factor in time for learning the system. At least one person needs to be appointed to it to understand the ins and outs of the system and be able to explain it to other people. Because these CRM systems, they are going to be a little more complicated. But what I will say is once I took the time to figure out how the system worked, it was so much quicker than using spreadsheets where I had to guess and say, oh no, John Smith, I know I have information on him from a spreadsheet, but I have 18 spreadsheets, so I have to just search for his name. Like I can go in our system, I can type in John Smith and it will pull up his contact record with all his donations, all his past engagements with the organization, if he's still subscribed to us. And so like it is worth it in the long run. And just having a place that streamlines all your data, especially the relationships between the organization and if it's a participant or a donor, either way, like I know that's one of the biggest things with data is that often it sometimes just lives in one person's head. And usually that person is an executive director or someone in leadership who has a lot going on and doesn't necessarily have the time to share that information out. So I will say just like getting in the practice too of using the system and saying, oh, okay, I just had a follow-up call with so-and-so, let me put that in every action, has also really impacted the ways that we keep track of our relationships. If we got a grant and I'm like, oh, I don't know why we got this grant, I could look them up and see, oh, Kiera actually has a relationship with this foundation funder. So those are the first couple ideas that came up But now I'm trying to remember what your question even was, Kira.
My questions was about systems, and hearing you talk, I want to name a few of the other systems that we use that may be a bit more traditional and user friendly. So some of those are, we have running Google Docs, running notes of Google Docs of running notes with each foundation that we talk to. So even though we may put some of those Spark notes, yeah, I just remembered Spark notes. Y'all remember Spark? Some of those Spark
Yes.
notes into our CRM. We have a running Google Doc that like me, Michelle, our ED Shinyeri reference like often. That is super helpful. So we're like, the last time we talked to them, this is what we said, this is where they were, this is what we said we would follow up on. These are the priorities and the things that they love and we love. And so we keep a running doc of each relationship that we hold that has more detailed notes that we can but I saw you came off mute, Michelle. You want to add?
Yeah, something that Ren was talking about was like making sure the database works for you. Super important. Make sure that it whatever database you're going to use, it has everything that you need to do your work effectively, but also making sure that everybody uses it in the same way. Because there is a big chance that, folks will want to use it a certain way or need something and they'll start using it that way, and not everybody else will know. So making sure there's also just a way that everybody is in agreement on how that system is being used. So that would be one of the biggest ones for me.
Yeah, and part of that agreement, thank you for bringing that up, is creating a manual for how to use that, which Ren is beautifully doing right now for all of us. And so we also use our CRM system we haven't really talked about yet for even participants. When participants sign up for our workshops, they sign up in that CRM system. So it automatically goes to where it needs to go, and we accept payments there. And so Ren is creating a manual that tells people how to use our CR system, because we were like, okay, well, this is more than a development team, a fundraising team tool. What are the best practices that we need to be embedding and infusing throughout our organization? And so thank you for bringing that up, because we do need to all be using it in the same way. And then you can also get like more specific around like tags and all of those as well to help you in that use. But I was also thinking that we keep, even though our CRM can pull a grant report, we honestly are still pretty basic in our day-to-day of having a board of, on a website. I'm like, how many of these things should we name? we have an Asana board where we keep track of like the grants we've applied to, the ones that we are applying to and waiting to hear back, the ones that we applied to and said yes, the ones we applied to and said no. And we go through those at least once a quarter to say, like, where are we now? And then next year, at the end of 2022, we can say, okay, in 2023, who do we go back to? Who is worth exploring more? What do we need to do better? What are the topics or the people who say yes to us most often? What does that say about our work and how we're communicating our work? So that is another thing we do as a team. Other systems we have as a team, we meet once a week. And we have fun in our meetings. Hopefully our meetings are fun. I'm like, are they? We meet once a week. We set goals together when we meet, and we also have a yearly retreat. And at our retreat, some fabulous things comes out of our retreats, and that's where we get to like lean into our abundance. And so the weekly meetings are super helpful to us as well. As a team, each of us sits on another team in the organization's meetings. So one of us goes to C2's action team meetings to learn about their work. One of us goes to C2's organizing team meetings to learn, to be in their work and learn about their work. And so, yeah, I think we just have those kind of practices that's essential to our org. And maybe I would love to wrap up, because I just talked about how we sat on these teams within the organization, but we do more than just sit and listen to those. So as a development team, we are also practitioners of the work. And so I would love for us to just share about, our backgrounds, how we got into this, we're the other sides of us to help inform how special we are in our fundraising.
Yeah, I can go and then pass it on. So I have been fundraising, I'm trying to do the math, for like 7 years now. And I started off fundraising. I'm from South Carolina, but I'm currently based in Portland, Oregon. But at the time, I got my fundraising experience working at a more local organization called Carolina Youth Action Project. And so I was coming out of youth organizing, and it was a very grassroots, low budget organization. So in that, I got to experience a lot of roles. I was the appointed development person. So I was the person who was writing grants, running fundraisers, communicating with funders. But I was also a facilitator. I have a lot of experience in political education. I have done some direct action, leading and planning, which is also, yeah, like it's a little different as well with like young people coming out of youth organizing. But I really love how my experience at that, at CAP was really like, okay, here's the thing, now figure out how to do it. I think it was really challenging for me, but it helps me in this role at C2 because I'm used to wearing multiple hats. And I know that I have skills that translate across teams. So like, for example, my facilitation skills that I have, that's helpful for this team because our development team, we run workshops and trainings for other folks who are in fundraising and development. And that's also a skill I can use on our organizing team as I also assist with facilitating trainings there. And I guess one more skill I would probably name that has helped me a lot has been like grant writing, because I am used to the dynamic of having to convey the work that somebody else is doing. So for example, the person who is leading all of our programming at my other organization, I would usually have to talk with them, have a meeting, and just type out everything they were naming and then put it into a grant. And I think that translates really well into this. I'm sure anyone who's watching this probably has some experience in fundraising and development, and therefore you know how important it is to convey the work. And often you're synthesizing what other people are doing in the work to convey it to funders. And I would say we do that a lot. As you were talking about, Kiera, with us being on different teams, like that's another way for us to be in the know about what the other teams of our organization are doing, and then be able to report that back in a really mindful way to the people who we are accountable to, whether that's our participants or our donors. So I would say that's my background, and I will pass it to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Ren. I have been fundraising for the past 15 years. I started doing it in high school with a queer youth organization that I was a part of. And really as a volunteer, it was just calling people to ask for donations. Didn't seem that hard to me. We had a script, so we just followed the script and it felt really easy. And I did that throughout high school and college while I was really involved with them. And then after college, I really wanted to plug into social justice work and saw a position for a development associate. And so I was like, hey, I've done fundraising before. I can do this. Definitely learned that more formal fundraising work requires a lot more planning. And I needed some skill building, but I learned so much. And I got to start, an individual donor program from scratch, which was amazing. And it was a great experience because I got to be creative. I got to really, get to know the donors better and really focus on building relationships. So that's always been my favorite part, is just talking to folks and getting to know them. And I also got to learn more about grant writing and grant reporting, which wasn't something I was very familiar with when I was volunteering. And, folks definitely think that fundraising is hard and intimidating because we have to ask for money. But again, like that abundance mindset has always been there. Like the money is out there and we deserve it. All we got to do is ask for it, right? So I think that's always been like what's guided me in fundraising work. And I am not afraid to ask for help. So I think that's also a really big help too, in doing fundraising. But I also believe that fundraising is just a different type of organizing. We're organizing resources with folks who want to help us get those resources.
Yeah, I started, I'm just gonna start when, I start getting paid to do this work. But I was the sole program person of a high school improv theater troupe. So I was the rep, I wrote the grants, I, planned out the rehearsals, I bought the snacks, I was the logistics person for all the travel. I was like the sole person. And so it really threw me into fundraising, and asking for money and writing grants and gathering the young people and advocating for them. And so that is how I got started. And then I was also a local organizer and a regional organizer and served on an education team, where I directed, programs across the whole entire region and had to reflect that work back out to the public. And so that helped me in my fundraising skills because it gave me the skills very quickly to speak very clearly about the work and about the strategy of the work and what we were doing next. And I think those are important things to do as fundraisers, is to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what's happening next. And so those are the things I would share with this call. But most importantly, I just want to highlight that it's so incredibly important to hire people from the work in development and fundraising roles, in all roles, honestly, of an organization, but especially in fundraising and leadership roles in an organization. Is really important to hire people directly from the work, who's done the work, who's impacted by the issues of your organization, so that it is an authentic voice, it is an authentic ask, and that that what you're fundraising for is representative of the people on the ground.
Absolutely, Kira. I also wanted to add that um, take a chance on people. El Pueblo took a chance on me, and I had no formal development
Yeah.
experience, and it was an amazing experience, and I'm really glad that they took a chance on me
Yeah.
because I get to do this work, and I really enjoy doing it. And I think a big part of the reason why our team works so well together is because we know what it's like to have to fundraise alone, to be the sole
Mm-hmm.
development person. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think because a lot of the time people think one person is enough, or, we're siloed a lot of the time. And we're like, no, we need to be talking to everybody. We need to have a culture of fundraising because everybody can do this and everybody should be doing this.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a really good point. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you all for joining. Kind of. our pre-recorded, our pre-recorded workshop. If you need to get in touch with us, just email info@ctwo.org and they'll make sure the email gets to us if you have any questions or follow-up. Again, my name's Kira Sims. I'm the development director of C2. And what about y'all?
I'm Ren. I am the development and data organizer at C2.
And I'm Michelle. I'm the development manager at C2.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, y'all.
Thanks.